I'm Al Weeby with Metro Tow Trucks, and today we'll be doing an instructional video on the Metro FB-15 mounted on this 2020 International equipped with pow finger crane. Alright, to begin with this unit, it's equipped with a master battery shut-off switch located next to the batteries on the passenger side of the truck. To begin operation, you're going to want to start with this switch here. So next, you're obviously going to want to start the truck. Like all diesels, give it a few seconds to let your glow plugs warm up and then start the truck. And as with all commercial vehicles, you want to have your headlights on, and the truck has already built up enough air pressure, but before you start your PTO switch, you always want to make sure you have at least 100 pounds of pressure in each tank. And your PTO switch is conveniently located right here, clearly labeled on the dash. And then whenever operating on the unit, you also want to have all your work lights and flashers on, which are these 4 buttons. And the last button has been left as an auxiliary in case somebody wants to add anything else to the truck. As well, we have these indicators before the truck is in motion that will let you know if the crane is not stowed or if the stabilizers are not fully retracted. One of these lights will be lit, letting you know not to drive down the road until they're off. Now we're going to be working our way from the front to the back of the truck. So before we get to the crane, we're going to show you how to operate the remote and turn the remote on. So the first thing you want to do when you're turning on this remote is to make sure the reset button is released and to hold the power button down until it's lit. And on this remote, there is a lot of buttons on here, but there's only a few functions that actually do anything. So to toggle the crane, it's only the furthest left handle and the furthest right handle. The middle handle is just an auxiliary. It's a spare if you ever need to replace anything. As well, it's only has the speed sensor right here to increase the speed functions on the crane, and your reset and your power on and off. The rest of the buttons on here are just auxiliary switches. As well, the remote will come equipped with a neck strap and a waist strap for long use. And now we're going to move back to the crane and show you how to use the remote and the crane. Now we're going to show you how to turn on the crane. So we've already engaged the PTO inside the cab of the truck. So now we're going to move back here and show you how to start the crane. Now the crane's going to have a constant warning, beeping sound for safety. As well, I wanted to make clear that whenever operating the crane, you want to make sure you're wearing some visible gear, wear some protective gloves, and also a hard hat whenever you're doing any type of overhead. So we're going to come over to the crane. Over here, the first thing we've got to do to start the crane up is turn the reset button over here. Now the crane is engaged. This handle right here is a crossover valve, so you cannot run the crane and the bed at the same time. So in order to run the crane, you have to turn the crossover valve all the way down. Now the pump is pumping hydraulic fluid into the crane and not the bed. When you come over here, you'll see 3 different functions. There is, you turn the key, that gives you your outrigger functions. You turn the key another notch, that will engage the remote. The third function engages the crane on the joystick handles manually over here. So to start off, we're going to turn all the way back to the leg function. And the legs can only be functions over here. And now what we're going to do is we're going to stick out the outlets. So right now I'm sticking both outlets out manually. On a side note, your outrigger pads are conveniently located right here next to the stabilizers. So you're going to want to pull these out. Put your cotter pin back so you don't lose it. And pull the stabilizer out. Now what this stabilizer will do, I'm sure most of you that are watching this video already know, but it will expand the ground pressure and not leave a dimple in the road, and it will also add some extra stability to the unit. So now we're going to set the outrigger down. There's a small bubble located on the computer right over here, and this computer basically tells you how level you are on the unit. And the leg functions can be done from both sides of the unit. And also, there's an emergency stop located right over here. Now for some added stability, we're going to put the rear underlift T-bar down on the ground, and that'll increase the stability when you're picking around the corners with the crane. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch the control valve from the back of the flatbed, and we'll proceed to the back, and we'll put the stinger down. You always want to make sure your airbags are dumped on the truck to reduce pressure and to avoid blowing an airbag. Now what we're going to do is we're going to uncradle the boom. This is a very intricate process and should be done very carefully to avoid any damage to the cap. So now we're going to go over back to the main computer, and we're going to flip the switch to engage the remote. And we're going to show you how to turn the remote again on once again. In order to turn the remote on, you must flip to the remote feature in the middle, reset the remote, and hold the power button on. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to slow the remote right down, and there's 4 features of speed. So you'll have to hold the switch back 4 times to get it on to its slowest speed. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. Now it's in its slowest form, in its operating form. We're going to go on the other side, and we're going to watch the boom uncradle. Now whenever you're operating the crane, it's very important to remember to switch the control PTO valve over to make sure that the fluid is pumping into the crane and not into the bed. So the first step of unfolding this crane, you want to lift this crane up as high as you can up into the air, straight up, which is the down function. Okay, so after elevating the boom fully in the air, there's a latching point on the boom where our lovely camera person is going to zoom into and just show you while I unlatch it. Now we're going to unlatch it, so we're going to push the boom back. With the right hand toggle, and then we're going to out of the saddle. And then we're gonna lift her up. Very careful. You want to be very careful around that stack. So we're gonna rotate over just a bit. And you have to remember the remote is pressure sensitive, so you know, you just take your time with it. You don't have to give it full throttle. So, now your boom is free. Now you're free to rotate. And this boom is capable of rotating 270 degrees around the truck. So you won't be able to rotate off the nose, but you'll be able to rotate the whole distance around the back end of the truck. So what we're going to do now is we're going to rotate it, and we're going to extend it out. Our camera person is going to take a walk around shot to give you an idea of what the crane looks like when it's fully. Now, if you're ever in the middle of operating and your battery dies on the remote, which is located under the remote, there's another battery conveniently located underneath the seat. Just to recap, we just wanted to show you when the crane is unstowed, it shows you what is not stowed and what is stowed before taking off. Now, as well on your remote, if you ever get into a situation where your buzzer starts alarming because you overloaded the system, you just hold your standby button right here and it'll reset it after you reset the truck. So now we're just going to take a short video of the boom operating around the tail of the truck. Next up here is our clevis hook. Just a reminder, whatever you pick up, know your load limit, make sure you're not overloading it. The load chart's conveniently located on the driver's side of the computer box as well. So now what we're going to do is we're going to restow the crane and we're going to meet you on the other side. Now that we've retracted the boom, we're going to stow the boom. So obviously the boom needs to be retracted, and we're going to reverse what we first did when we unloaded the boom. So we're going to come down, and we're going to make sure we don't hit anything. Tension on the clip. You want to make sure there's tension on that. So you want to get it in there tight. Next, we're going to fold the boom back down into the stowed position. This is a very important part over here. So you want to bring the boom down very carefully. Always watch what you're doing. Make sure you're not going to interfere with anything else. As you bring the boom down, I want you to notice this clip over here. So when we lock the boom, we're going to use this clip to launch it right over here. Once this is fully latched, it's fully stowed, and you can put away the outriggers. The other thing to be very mindful of is when you're stowing your this section of the boom does not make any contact with your control station. You have to be very careful when holding it in. Stowed. We're going to retract the outriggers on the other side, and we're going to show you a couple more features for the outrigger on the other side. So, again, to recap, to stow the outriggers, we're going to turn to the outrigger function. And remember, if you ever find yourself overloading or you need to reset your system, you have the OLP Reset on the remote, and you also have it on the computer right over here. We're going to put away the outrigger pad. I'm going to turn off the crane by simply pushing in the reset button. The crane is now disabled. The hydraulic flow is still going to the crane. We'll get to the bed in a bit. There's still a couple more features we're going to go over here. Okay, so over here on the computer box, there's a panel that you can open up. Take a shot of that. That is your master override. So in any circumstance where you feel the need, where you need to override whatever the computer is telling you, you break the seal over there, and you're free to do whatever you can with the crane, but it is marked, so the warranty can be void if the seal is broken on that. So it's something to be very wary of. As well, underneath over here, you have your grease points for your auto greasers to grease the crane, which you should do during all your scheduled maintenance. As well, there's a cap over here. If your batteries die out, you can just plug in your ScanReco remote over here, and you'll always have a data connection link between you and the crane if you want to operate from a safe distance with a tether cord. Okay, so now we're going to move to the tilt bed portion of this unit. So, like I stated before, I'm just going to be a little bit repetitive just so everybody remembers. In order to switch from your crane function to your tilt bed function, you're going to want to pull this handle into the other direction. So now our hydraulic system is pumping the flatbed. So equipped with the truck, you get a secondary remote. This remote runs all of the functions on the tilt bed. In order to turn on the remote, you want to reset the remote, push down and turn it, and then there's a start button down here. Hold the start button until the light starts flashing green. Sometimes you might have to hit the stop button first and then the start button, and now I'm engaged. So now we're operating the bed from the remote. In order to tilt the bed, you must always make sure you slide the bed back far enough to clear your bed locks underneath the bed. Now that you've cleared the bed locks, we can lift the bed up. Now, whenever loading a piece of equipment onto this truck, it's a good idea to make sure your airbags are dumped as well. And you always want to make sure your rear anchors are touching the ground before picking anything up to reduce any amount of stress on the chassis. Now, when tilting the bed down, it's imperative to have your air suspension dumped on the truck to avoid blowing an airbag. As well, the rear anchors will not touch the ground until your air suspension is dumped. Now that your rear anchors have touched the ground, you can load whatever you want on the truck without causing minimal stress to the truck. Before we move on to the flatbed, we're just going to cover a couple features that come with the flatbed. You have a headboard rack where you can hang some of your, as well as some extra steps and a safety handle to safely get onto the bed. Well, when you look at the railing on the truck over here, you can see that there's some PVC plastic. This is one of the basic maintenance points on the flatbed. You always want to make sure that these sections are greased and you're not damaging any of these and replacing them as they need to be replaced. As well on this unit, we have some removable railings in case you need the extra deck space when loading a piece of equipment or a vehicle. So to remove the railing, you simply pop out the cotter pin and lift the railing up. Equipped on the Metro FB-15 as well is the air free spool switch. What this switch does is it free spools your cable. Never ever free spool your cable under load. Always make sure your cable's unloaded and not attached to anything. Basic vehicle hookup, and I have a few chains laid out here, and we're using some used chains because I don't want to get our customers' new chains scratched and dirty. What we have here is 4 J hooks, 2 locking traps, and a set of V chains. Now there's multiple ways to tie down a vehicle. The newer method is obviously using wheel straps. This particular vehicle did not come equipped at the request of the customer with wheel straps. So now we're going to carry on and we're going to start hooking up this vehicle and show you how to do it. Well, first thing we're going to do is got our winch and free spool. We're gonna pull our winch out, pull it towards the vehicle. I usually like to pull the cable just past the wheels just to give you easy access for hooking up. Next, we're going to attach our V-chain. Whenever you attach your V-chain to the vehicle, always make sure you're grabbing a solid piece of the vehicle, like a tow hook or an A-arm. Just always avoid grabbing a stabilizer link or anything that could possibly break when you pull up. Now that I have the V-chain hooked up on a solid piece of the vehicle, you can notice there's a bit of slack in my winch cable. What I like to do before turning the cable in is always be careful when you're grabbing it, not to grab a bad spot or a sharp spot. I like to put a little bit of tension on it. Once you have the vehicle on the bed, before you move the vehicle around, I had the opportunity to put this car in neutral because I had the keys for it. You won't always have the keys for it. So I'm going to go ahead and put the car into park. And then I'm going to lift up my bed and slide it in. Stowed onto the vehicle, we're going to take two of our J-hooks and we're going to grab onto a solid section of the vehicle. Now that you have your J-hooks hooked onto a solid part of the vehicle, I like to also cross my chains at the back. Loading. So what we're going to do now is tighten it up. So you just want to put enough tension on until you see the back end of the car squat a little bit. You don't want to pull too hard and tear the car apart. So that's about as tight as I want to get. I'll double check my chains on the back over here. They're tight. And then I'll take my slip plug, hook it onto a link so it's not bouncing up and down the road as I'm driving. Now, as you guys see the two chains on the back, in addition to those, I've added two safety chains to the front of the vehicle that are attached with load binders as well to secure the load. I'm going to load this binder down. Always be careful when you pull in your load binder, make sure you're never in the load bin, nobody else is in the load bin. Now that that is loaded, I'm going to put my my secondary lock to make sure my my load binder doesn't come open. Now that is a 4-point tie down. Vehicle secure and unlocked. Alrighty, so we're going to talk about some of the capacities. This deck is rated for 30,000 pounds. It comes equipped with a heavy duty underlift, ready to lift 20,000 pounds. Now, this underlift is capable of many forking applications, towing tractors, pretty well towing anything medium duty. What we're going to do though right now is we're going to show you how to set up the wheel grid attachments that come with this unit for towing a regular vehicle as shown here. Alright, so you want to slide on your adapter, lock your cam lock, and then you're going to put the other section of the adapter through the main tube over here. Find your adapters located inside the toolbox. Your wheel grids are conveniently located right by the control station. Make sure to unscrew your retainer latch and carefully pull out your wheel pad. Now we're going to attach our wheel springs on the swivel heads. You turn the swivel head out of it for convenience and then turn it into the car. Alrighty, you want to kind of have the swivel head slightly angled away from the vehicle so it doesn't make any contact with the front bumper. Once you have the swivel head in, you want to put your locking retainer pin into the nearest locking hole. Now we're going to go ahead and lift up. You always want to make sure you secure the vehicle with safety chains as well as tie down chains or tie down straps around the tires.
So the last point we wanted to touch on is means of securing your load to the flatbed itself. So if you look underneath the flatbed here, you'll see we have the sliding rail system. Works in conjunction with the strap tie down assembly, which will work up to a 3-inch strap. So it's fairly simple to use, mounted as such. Again, you're just making sure that the grooves on each side line up with the points of contact on the rail itself. This allows you to position it anywhere along the edge of the flatbed that you deem necessary. So that concludes everything on the Metro FB-15.